No more silence. We'll raise our voice for every hero.
Hey y'all, this is Todd Belknap, Executive Director of Veterans Helping Veterans USA here in Marion County, Florida. And I'd like to welcome you to our latest podcast here at Veteran United, who it's brought to you by none other than the guy behind the camera, Brian Lang, who is our podcast manager. So thank you to Brian for making all this possible. With us today is a tremendously special guest. This man is very well known throughout Marion County. He's been very active for many decades, has worn many, many hats, including the one he has on now. And he is none other than 101-year-old World War II veteran Howard Mautner. Howard, thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm glad to be here.
Now, you are in for a treat. If you have never heard Howard's story about, well, his life and World War II in general, sit back and enjoy, because you're in for a real treat. So, Howard, without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to you, and I'll just start out by, I know you were born in Rockford, Illinois, back on, April 28th, 1924. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
All right, take it away.
Okay, fine. Well, like Todd mentioned, I was born there in Rockford. I get asked the question, where were you born, when, and where did you grow up? Well, you've already heard Todd mentioning about April 28th of 1924, but as you can see, I did not do too good a job of growing up. Yeah, so much for that. So much for that. But speaking of growing up in small size, this ties in with what my original desire was upon entering the military after Pearl Harbor. I wanted to be a tail gunner in a B-17 Flying Fortress, one of those big four-engine bombers. They needed little guys for that. Well, unfortunately, it turned out that every crew member on those aircrafts had to have 20/20 vision, 20/20. Mine was 20/30. Out of luck. But my second choice, upon entering the service, was to be a control tower operator. Nowadays, they call that an air traffic controller. Nowadays, 80 years later, lots more technology, radar, scopes, computers, whatnot. But in those days, it was pretty much we operated with the radio. We spoke to the aircraft as far as coming or going or whatever the case might be. But coming back to that, as Todd mentioned, my entering the service, that was in September of 1942, and as I just mentioned, they gave me some choice. My first choice didn't work out. Second choice worked out fine. Army Air Corps. And of course, those days, we did not have the United States Air Force like we do now. That came about after WWII. But at any rate, I signed up there about 8 or 9 months after Pearl Harbor. I had an older brother who signed up about 3 weeks after Pearl Harbor. He wanted to fly a bomber. He wanted to be a combat pilot. And he did make it. He did make it through the aviation cadet training. Ended up flying B-25 twin-engine bombers out of the same area where I later served over there in North Africa and Italy. But coming back to Howard, as far as signing up there, I was processed at, whereas I lived in Madison, Wisconsin, I was processed at the Fort Sheridan Army Induction Center just north of Chicago. But at any rate, so basic training down to Biloxi, Mississippi. Of course, nowadays, when you mention Biloxi, oh boy, casinos, hotels, all that glitz and glamour.
Casinos?
But in those days, it was just a sleepy little town with an airfield outside of it, Keesler Field, Keesler, Keesler Field. Army had an installation, basic training. That's where I took the basic training. And whereas I'd asked for and received the control tower assignment, I had to get further training and education. So I was sent from Keesler Field, Mississippi, up to Scott Field, just in Belleville, Illinois, just east of St. Louis. Now that, by the way, that nowadays both of those places, Keesler and Scott, are still active duty military installations. So they're Keesler Air Force Base and Scott Air Force Base. But anyway, radio training there, including the Morse code, ended up being assigned to do after I finished several weeks there of training. I was assigned to domestic duty out in Kansas, at Fort Riley. Well, going back to before World War II, the peacetime Army, Fort Riley had been a cavalry. Well, no tanks, but a cavalry station. It was at Junction City, Kansas, about, I think about 120 miles west of Topeka. Well, I should say west of Kansas City. Topeka is about halfway between Kansas City and Fort Riley at Junction City. They had a little airfield there adjacent to Fort Riley. This is when you come to big military installations, whether it's Fort Benning, Georgia, or Fort Hood, Texas, or Fort Riley, Kansas, they have a small airfield adjacent to the bases. So when the big brass comes from Washington, they fly in there. Small planes, but they fly in there. They don't come on a train or in a car. But anyway, so that was Marshall, Marshall, Marshall Field, there at Fort Riley, Junction City. I was on duty there for several months. And by this time, it's almost a year after I had signed up in the Army, getting ready for overseas duty. Oh, so sure enough, got my marching orders, traveling on a troop train out to the East Coast, go to Goldsboro, North Carolina, Seymour Johnson Field, to be processed for overseas duty. Well, after a few days there at Seymour Johnson Field, got on the train, went up to Norfolk, Virginia, where I and a lot of others boarded a Liberty ship bound for somewhere east. Okay, because we didn't know whether we were going to England or to Africa.
So Howard, they didn't tell you where you were going then.
No, they didn't tell us where we were going.
Wow.
Well, top secret stuff.
Right.
Yeah, top secret stuff.
I'll be darned.
Yeah.
Even to them.
So I ended up the Liberty ship went from Norfolk to Casablanca. Not to London or not to
Rick's place.
Not to England, but went to Casablanca. And of course, there was not much concern for German submarines because they were busy working on the American supplies going to England, far north. So we had an uneventful trip. I managed to get seasick on the trip, but we landed at Casablanca, and we got there before Humphrey Bogart and Ingrid Bergman did.
Yeah.
There at Casablanca. So after a week or so, past the airfield there, boarded a plane and headed east and north. Well, by this time, we're into late September of '43, and American forces, or I should say Allied forces, had invaded Italy, southern Italy, in early September of 43. First they went from North Africa to Sicily, and then up there to the beachhead Salerno, south of Naples, September. Okay, well, and I arrived there in late October, very shortly after we had come. But the resistance was over. The military activity had moved north. And so I was assigned to the airport at Naples, Italy. Capodichino Airport, I can remember that. Capodichino, Capodichino. Large grass field, very large. Similar to what they had in England. In England, you may have seen in the news pictures of the RAF Spitfire fighters taking off to intercept the Germans. The big field there, they'd have 8 or 9 of them abreast, back and forth, like this, and go taking off the grassy field. We had a similar situation there in Naples. That it was. But we had a nice tower there. We had nice quarters. And I was assigned for duty up there on the tower at Naples, at Capodichino Airport. And I was there for quite some time. I was there for, over a year. But something rather significant happened there at Naples not too long after I arrived, maybe in December 43. Well, I was on duty at night. Well, they always had 2 of us in the tower. Duty at night. We closed the tower down at midnight and started again at 6 in the morning. But at the tower, must have been around 10:30 or 11 at night, we saw off in the east a glow in the sky. Oh, it must be a fire somewhere. Didn't think very much about it. And then we went off duty at midnight, and an hour or so later, we got some news that it was Mount Vesuvius, the famous Mount Vesuvius, Pompeii, 79 A.D., terrible eruption, thousands of people killed, right. That what we saw was Mount Vesuvius in eruption. It had been almost 100 years since its last eruption. And so there's a real deal. That was a real deal.
Yeah.
But coming back to that, so that was really something. I think they made a movie, The Last Days of Pompeii, something like that.
Yes.
But at any rate, so that was the deal there in Naples. And then that was one very significant event at Naples. And there was another one that took place much later. Matter of fact, it would have taken place in early 1945. Early 1940, January or February. Thinking back, that's late in the war. But at any rate, we were in the tower, up high. So down at the other end, across the field, we saw they erected an enclosure, and they fenced it in with canvas so you couldn't see in. Oh, what's going on over there? So along comes a truck with a trailer, and they unload that thing, and they're starting to put together an airplane. Oh, goodness sakes, putting an airplane together down there. What's going on here? So of course, I mentioned that fence people couldn't see in. Had to be something secret. From the tower, we could look down, see in there. Okay, so there's the airplane. Oh, well, there's a wing. Oh, there's the other wing. Oh, there's the tail. There's the body. You know, when are we going to see the propeller of the engine? So wings, landing gear, tail, no propeller or engine. Well, what happened? It turns out that was the first American jet, J-E-T, jet aircraft to show up in Europe. The first one. It was Lockheed, P like in pursuit, P-80 shooting star. And so obviously there was a propeller, and they assembled that plane. They did take it for a flight. It was not armed. It was a test flight. They did take it for about a 20 or 30-minute test flight in the area, came back in. Yeah, and it stayed there, and that was the end of that. And coming back to the jet aircraft, they came of age in the very late stages of WWII, because we had that P-80, and the Germans had a Messerschmitt Me-262, twin engines, jets. And that was a lot better than what we had. But fortunately for us, Mr. Adolf Hitler, the grand honcho on Germany, the German Air Force wanted to use that to combat our planes, to shoot our planes down. Hitler says, no, we want to use that for ground strafing, down close to the ground. Oh, and that's what it did. Relatively insignificant damage. But that was something very significant. So those are the two very big events that took place, impressive events, while I was in Naples. Mount Vesuvius and the Lockheed P-80 jet-powered shooting star aircraft. Okay, well, by this time, as I mentioned earlier, we're into 1945. And the Russians are advancing from the east, and D-Day had come, and the Americans and the Allies were advancing on Germany from the west. Things were getting pretty tough for the Germans. And so that was in early April of 45. Well, I'll take that back. It was in February of 45. I was reassigned from Naples to Venice, Italy. When you think of Venice, you think about the gondolas, you think about the canals, you think about the scenery, that beautiful church on the plaza with all the pigeons. Oh, boy. Oh, so they had an airport right adjacent, relatively small, Lido, L-I-D-O, Lido Airport, adjacent to Venice. And I was on duty there for several months. And they sent some of the upper grade military for rest and recreation to Venice, R&R they called it. They'd come into the Lido Airport where I was. There again, a relatively small airport. It could handle the C-47s, but the big planes had trouble getting in there. So I was there at Venice, Italy. We did manage to get over to Venice, to St. Mark's Square, to ride in a gondola, have some pictures taken. Of course, all the publicity then didn't tell us that in the canals at Venice, that's where the raw sewage and garbage went.
Yeah.
Yeah. So smell, always awful smell, but picturesque. Okay, so that was it. I mentioned February of 45. Along comes March, April, and by the time April came around, the Germans were just about done. So I was reassigned after they had surrendered. I think they surrendered in late April or early May, and it must have been in early June. I was reassigned to the airport at Vienna, Austria. Oh, boy. My dad had been born in Vienna, Austria. My dad was born in Vienna, came to this country at the age of 12. He talked German pretty good. And he served in World War I. His two sons served in World War II. And so we were glad to serve our country. But coming back to Vienna there, I had a pretty good, some very good fortune. They said, well, we can fly you direct from Venice here up there to Vienna, but that would not be for 3 or 4 weeks. You could get there faster if you go up through Europe. Oh, what's this all about? Yeah. So the bottom line, I get on a plane there at Venice. We fly up to Marseille, France, southern coast of France. Refuel, on up to Paris, France. Eiffel Tower, okay, the Louvre, Versailles, all kinds of things in Paris. Well, that sounds great, but this was the military of the war. I was not on a sightseeing trip. Yeah, no, unfortunately. But at Paris, I boarded the train, and it headed east into Germany. The train headed east into Germany, and over there, we got into Germany, got off the train, got out of the bus, went down to Munich, southern Germany, Munich, Oktoberfest, all that stuff, and changed buses, and took another bus that went to Vienna. Well, there's quite a bit of time elapsed here as far as several days. I saw a lot, and that was interesting, because on that bus trip from Munich to Vienna, we're in the Alps Mountains,
Yep.
the fringe of the Alps, and it was here. So these famous Austrian towns of Innsbruck
Yep.
and Linz, Linz, scenic, right, and I ended up in Vienna, control tower duty at the Tulln, Tulln. Tulln was the airport at Vienna, and I was there for several months. But coming back, well, my dad had been born in Vienna, and he provided me the address where he had lived, and I thought out of time off, I'd try to locate that area. Well, I did, and there had been severe fighting in Vienna, a lot of fighting, a lot of destruction. That area where he lived was just a mass of rubble, no houses, no buildings, no, out of luck there. But at any rate, so I was on duty there in Vienna at the Tulln airport, big airport, a big city, Vienna, like Naples or Munich. But at any rate, I was on duty there until coming back to the United States to be discharged, which took place in December, early December. Went from Vienna over to France, Cherbourg, that's one of the ports there. And they converted some aircraft carriers to carry troops because, there were tons of military going back to the United States. And I was on the USS Randolph, that aircraft carrier, North Atlantic, December, winter weather, stormy, high seas, didn't get seasick at all. Did not get seasick at all. Yeah, but we came back to this country in a New York harbor, past that wonderful Statue of Liberty up there, and we disembarked, went to Fort Dix, New Jersey, about 25 or 30 miles west of New York City. Fort Dix, D-I-X. Sort of interesting, because I was interviewed one time by a person for an article. I mentioned Fort Dix, and when the article showed up, they spelled Dix, D-I-C-K-S. D-I-C-K-S.
Not a history fan.
Right. Yeah, but anyway, discharged at Fort Dix and given money to buy a train ticket back home. Well, here's this young guy. By this time, I'm 21 years old in New York City, and I may not get back here.
Yeah.
I may not get back here. So I think I'll take a little time to do sightseeing in that area before getting on a train to come back home to Wisconsin. And I did. I saw Grant's Tomb, Empire State Building, Coney Island. I stayed there about a week. But finally got on the train, came back to the Midwest, back to Madison, Wisconsin, and of course, I was a civilian by then. Okay, back to Madison, Wisconsin, and that was the end of my military career. You've heard the story. Like it or not, you've heard the story. And I've got a few things here, some pictures and documents, and Todd might want to know a little bit about that. So I'll be happy to try answering any questions that you may have. I just want to be as helpful as I can on this podcast. So, okay.
So, Howard.
The end. Yes, Doc.
What a great oration by Howard Mautner. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Now, we've gone to schools before where they're not exactly, well, it's a difficult crowd sometimes to connect to high school students, and Howard never has a problem doing that with his humor and with his, not his knowledge of history, he's lived history. So he has brought some documents, and what we will do with those, including his military documents, we're going to make copies of those and put them on the page along with this podcast. So I don't know if there's a way to feather those into the end of the podcast, Brian. Brian's shaking his head. Yes. I'm trying not. I know I'm probably making a noise there. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, you'll recognize those things.
Brian always tells me don't touch the microphone because it makes noise. So this was in November of, golly, how was that, 23, I think? Remember? We had a friend. In fact, you went to her school. We went to her school, and you did a presentation there on Bonnie Heath Boulevard.
Yep.
Christina.
Uh-huh.
Well, Christina is also the editor of a magazine, Southeast and Country Club Living, which is published here. And she called me up. I was in Quantico, Virginia, visiting my son, who's in the Marine Corps. And she called up in probably July and said, Todd, I need to do an article for Veterans Day. And I was thinking, could you get a hold of Howard? And I said, well, golly, Howard's my neighbor. Of course I can get a hold of Howard. So she sent Kay Lerner, if I'm not mistaken. Kay came and interviewed you at the Veterans Park office for this. And I think I was in Michigan when that happened. I missed it. Yeah. But great article on Howard and his biography. So we're going to include snippets of this, thanks to Kay and Christina at Southeast and Country Club Living. A phenomenal article. So Howard here is holding a picture of Howard the Younger, right?
83 years ago.
This is
83 years ago, age 18.
You know, when you call me, this picture pops up on my telephone, the picture of you from World War II. So here's Howard. Howard recently, and then Howard back 80 years ago, you said? How long ago was that? Yeah, here's the picture itself. Pretty handsome fellow there. Army Air Corps. And so here we have some documents. Honorable discharge. I'm going to have to put my eyeballs on for this. This is Howard Mautner, honorable discharge, 30 December 1945. And on the back, and this is laminated for safekeeping, Howard has the back of it. On the back here is his report of separation, which lists, he was a staff sergeant in the Army Air Corps, and this lists his duties, where he was at, European, African, Middle Eastern Service Medal, Good Conduct Medal, World War II Victory Medal.
Service record.
Service record, yes. So all that stuff. So we're going to include all of this when we finish up the podcast. And we're going to include all these treasures that Howard has. Yeah, we did a little thing here, Howard. Remember, we had a little birthday party.
Oh.
So Howard is getting ready to turn 100, way back when. And I say, Howard, how big you want to do this? He goes, well, Todd, you only turn 100 one time. So we kind of did it big, didn't we?
I'll see.
Congresswoman Kamek came.
That was a big one.
Yep. There's over 150 people showed up. The county commissioners, city council. George Albright was there.
Kat Kamek.
Congresswoman Kat Kamek came. She loved on you and hugged all over you.
Yep.
Yeah, Howard was amongst his friends, his family, all his loved ones. It was catered by Mojo's. They brought in the food, and it was a good time had by all. And it was a celebration of life for this man here for his years of dedicated service. Not only so, Howard didn't stop living in 1945. He kept living. He was very active in politics for many, many years. You were like a precinct captain or something, weren't you there?
Yeah.
So if you didn't vote, Howard could come to your house and ask you, how come you're not voting? Get to the precinct and vote. So Howard believed in exercising your duties and to vote. So he is a wonderful delight to be with, and anywhere we go, Mission Barbecue. This Saturday, we're going to date timestamp this by saying this, but we're going to be at Wreaths Across America Saturday at Highland Memorial Park. And Howard is, if there's a public event, you can guarantee Howard Mautner, Staff Sergeant, Army Air Corps, will be there. So, Howard, let me shake your hand. Thank you very, very much, not only for taking time to do this today.
My pleasure. I am honored in being here. Honored, that's for certain.
I not only consider him a hero, I consider him a great friend. And he's just a tremendous delight to be around. He's always on. Although he's got aches and pains, he never talks about them. He's always positive. And that's something that we can all get behind and try to emulate, is no matter what's going on in our life, try to be positive and lift each other up. Right, Howard?
Absolutely.
So Howard, we thank you for today. We thank Brian Lang for being making all this possible here at Veterans United Podcast. And we hope this is circulated far and wide to show people the story of United States Army Air Corps World War II veteran Howard Mautner. See you at the next one.
In the shadows of the night, they fought the fight. Brave hearts, lost souls, searching for the light. With every battle scar, they carry the weight. But we're to lift them up. It's never too late. No more silence. We'll raise our voice for every hero. We'll make the choice. Together we'll stand, united and proud. For the ones who served, veterans helping veterans is loud. Stand strong together, we'll pave the way. For the veterans in need, we won't turn away. With open hearts and open hands, we'll light the path, take a stand. We'll rise like the dawn, shining ever bright. For every soldier lost, we'll be their guiding light. Through the storm and the tears, they walked alone. But we're building a home where they can be known. From the ashes they rise, with courage anew. With a brotherhood strong, we'll see them through. No more silence, we'll raise our voice. For every hero, we'll make the choice. Together we'll stand, united and proud. For the ones who serve, veterans helping veterans is loud. When the night feels long and hope is thin. We'll be their family. We'll let the healing begin. No more fighting alone. We'll walk side by side. With the strength of our hearts, we'll be their guide. Let the love ignite. Let compassion flow. With every story shared, together we'll grow. We honor the past, but we build the way for brighter tomorrows, come what may. Oh, brave hearts unite. It's time to stand tall. Together we rise. Together we'll call for every veteran who feels lost in the night. Join hands in the darkness. We'll be their light. So here's to the warriors, the strong and the true. We're lifting them up from the old to the new. With every beat, in every heartfelt song, brave hearts united, together we belong.